The style of realism traveled over the Atlantic and found a great deal of popularity in America. Thomas Eakins was one of the most prolific American realists from this time. As much as he was a painter, Eakins was interested in medicine and science. This painting, entitled The Gross Clinic, is an unflinching documentation of a surgery being performed in an operating room of the time. There is no idealization and no exaggeration of reality. The muddy, earth-toned color scheme conveys the darkness of the dank, windowless clinic. In the dim light, you can barely see the medical students looking on from the auditorium seats. The only spots of saturated color are the hands of Dr. Gross covered in the red of the patient's blood. One of Eakins' students was Henry Osawa Tanner. Tanner's realist paintings convey the domestic aspects of poor rural life. The historical importance of Henry Osawa Tanner is that he was one of the first black artists to find popularity in the white-dominated Western painting tradition. His paintings give us a glimpse into the lives of a culture that was rather underdocumented at the time. John Singer Sargent was another popular American realist in the late 19th century. He was renowned for his naturalistic and seemingly informal portraiture. Unlike Courbet or Tanner, who concentrated on depicting peasantry, Sargent worked greatly by commission. The models for this painting, entitled Mr. and Mrs. I.N. Phelps Stokes, were wealthy young patrons who would have paid the artist to paint them. To reinforce the difference between naturalism and idealism, I will compare a painting by John Singer Sargent with a painting by the 17th century Spanish artist Diego Velázquez. Sargent and Velázquez's paintings are very similar in subject matter. They are both portraits of young girls in their homes, commissioned by their wealthy fathers. Velázquez's painting, entitled Las Meninas, is much more rigid and formal than Sargent's. The subject, the Infanta Margarita, was the daughter of the King of Spain. Because she is not just any little girl, Velázquez has idealized her features to look like a porcelain doll, and he probably painted most, if not all of the painting in his studio rather than on location. The posture of the young princess more closely resembles that of a shrunken lady than that of a young child. Sargent's painting, The Daughters of Edward Darley Boyd, is more obviously painted on location and from life. Instead of trying to smooth his brushstrokes, Sargent paints in a looser, sometimes blurry style. Details are less of a concern when he's trying to capture a unique posture or appearance. The sense of light that he creates is also very specific to an early time of the day, so he would have had to work quickly before the quality of light changed. Back to Paris, Edward Manet was another very pivotal French artist in the Realist movement. He began painting in this style nearly a decade after Courbet, but he contributed an equal share to the ideas of modernism. Where Courbet contributed a grittiness of subject, Manet's contribution was acknowledging the flatness of a picture plane. As we'll soon learn, one of the primary modernist trends was to create work that increasingly acknowledged this flatness. Manet's figures often look pasted into their environments with harsh or sometimes inconsistent lighting. In this way, he jokingly acknowledges the fact that each figure was probably painted in his studio at separate times. This painting, entitled Luncheon on the Grass, is one of Manet's most well-known works. Although it was rejected by the jurors of the 1863 Salon, this painting was included in that year's Salon des Refusés, a new government-sponsored show meant to exhibit work not deemed appropriate for the Salon proper. As far as the content of the image, the painting depicts two clothed men having a picnic with two nude women. Although the jurors deemed this type of scene socially inappropriate, it is not unique to the history of accepted Western painting. This painting by the Renaissance artist Titian, entitled Pastoral Concert, served as an inspiration for Manet's Luncheon on the Grass. Like Manet's painting, Titian depicts two fully clothed men sharing a spot in a field with two completely nude women. The difference is that the nude women in Titian's painting are meant to represent Greek muses, or spirits who inspire men to create. Because muses are spirits, we are not to believe that they are visible to the men in that space. Because creativity was seen as a pursuit of higher ideals, these nude women are meant to carry a moralizing message. Since Manet painted as a realist, we are to believe that the scene in his painting is something observed from reality. There is no grand metaphor. It is simply a group of people in varying states of dress enjoying a picnic. Another comparison can be made between this painting by Titian entitled Venus of Urbino and this one by Manet entitled Olympia. The Venus of Urbino is meant to represent the Greek goddess of love, the same one represented in the Venus de Milo. Because she is meant to represent ideal feminine beauty and proportions, the artist would not likely have painted her from one model. He may have observed from several female figures to distill his favorite features, and then he still would have idealized them to create the finished figure. With Manet's Olympia, the artist borrows the same pose from Titian, but paints a single recognizable figure, that of a known Parisian prostitute. With both of these works, Manet uses devices from art history to poke fun at Western art itself. This is a common thread that one can observe throughout the tradition of modernism. Many modern artists made work that reacted against certain arts that came before, if not completely dismissing them. As we'll soon learn, the work of Manet inspired a slightly younger generation of French artists, and together they created the style known as Impressionism.